this was not intentional. We didn't even talk about this beforehand. Thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah, no problem. I saw your video was up and I saw the dreaded discussion. I was like, oh boy, yeah, we got their news too.
This is a lot to discuss, right? So,
Oh yeah.
I wanted to actually just put this on a live because I didn't want to have to cover this in a real video, and I wanted to give it enough time to really kind of like let everything sink in, talk about everything that I thought was important to talk about and put it into real perspective. And I'm glad that you're able to join me here. When it comes to, first and foremost, guys, like I said before, Jacob and I have done several retrospective videos about the entirety of the Saw franchise, the first trilogy, the second trilogy, the last film, and then I think the last one we did was Spiral.
Yeah, that was the last one we did, yes.
We never did anything for Saw 10, which I think is a shame, but I know that you put up an entire like hours worth of review on your channel, which I can link in the description section below for people to go check out because it's definitely worth the listen.
Oh yeah, like I said, that was one of the most satisfying videos I ever got a chance to work on. Like I say, it was about, I guess I want to say it was about 90 minutes or so. I could be wrong, but it was just an opportunity for me to go in depth and talk about a film franchise that I loved, a movie that I loved so much. And like I say, it just really brought the best out of me as far as, not only an editor, but as a YouTube contenter, which I've grown over the years. I think back to whenever we first had our conversation together, Mark, I think it was 2017, right after the Jigsaw trailer came out. I saw your videos here on this channel, and it just got my passion to come back into Saw because, you did videos of the Saw franchise way back in because, Saw had its original ending back in 2010. And then I, like myself, was just trying to figure out, okay, well, now that my favorite horror franchise is gone, I need to see, what else is out there. And then I turn on, I see some of your videos going across from 2016 on up to 2017. And then I just reached out, and thankfully, we've met, got a chance to talk. We've made a lot of retrospective videos in the past. Our friendship has grown over the years. It just goes to show that it's been hard to believe it's been 8 years, but here we are in 2025, still talking about the Saw franchise. And that says a lot what it means to both, not only just you and me as well, and I'm sure all the fans listening to this. On top of that, what Saw has meant to us over the years, and that's kind of why this hard conversation is kind of hard just for the both of us, and I'm sure it's the fans listening as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we knew was kind of coming on around the corner, like for the last couple of months. I've covered it on my channel. I know that you've been following it yourself.
Yeah,
like this is just something that we've known is going to happen because they weren't filming. There was no active production calls for the movie and everything. They had already pushed it back a year. There was infighting within the producers that everybody was talking about, but nobody was actively saying. And I feel like the one thing that just kind of brought it to a head now is that Bloody Disgusting, which has been at the forefront of being a real legitimate news source for horror related content for the last several years, finally brought it to the forefront of their page, crashed their site. I mean, talk about Dragon Ball comparisons. The fact that a Saw movie's not happening crashed the Bloody Disgusting site. This is something that I haven't really seen happen in a really long time in the horror community, where news of a movie sequel that isn't happening is going to draw so many people to an active site like Bloody Disgusting and crash it because they're upset or they have thoughts and opinions to share and everything. And this is on top of like everything that's happening with the Scream franchise right now. And
I know. I already seen them the day. It's like Saw 11 gets canceled, but Scream 7 got greenlit. Come on now.
Yeah, like that's my favorite meme of all of this is like, Lord, like take all the pain of Saw 11, double it, and give it to Scream 7.
Yeah,
but
no, I can diss Scream 7. It could be good. I'll give it a bit of the doubt.
It certainly could be. I'm not trying to diss anything.
Oh yeah.
But so while we're here, let's discuss a couple of things about this sequel that just kind of got canned, as well as the future of the series. You and me. This will be our retrospective, in lieu of everything else on is Saw 11. Put everything into perspective. Saw 10 releases. You and I have discussed this a lot, but just giving people who are listening to this in the chat like the benefit of the doubt. There's a lot of chatter at the ending of Jigsaw that Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger are going to write the next script of the Saw franchise. They're drafting this stuff, and in the interim of their drafting and that movie getting made, as well as the pandemic, there's a lot of reporting that, hey, the next film that they're writing is going to be a prequel set in between the first and the second film that's going to focus primarily on John Kramer. And that's going to be the focus going forward, is making these interquel sequels going so they can use Tobin Bell before, as he's still active and willing to play this character. That gets a wrench thrown into it when it is randomly, and I believe it's like on Deadline in like 2019 or whatever it is, where it's like, oh yeah, Chris Rock is developing the next Saw sequel, and it's going to be something completely different, and like we're really excited for it. Nothing of what we have heard in the background over the last couple of months before then. And as crazy as that is, there's a lot of people who are like, hey, this is the new direction. This is exactly what they wanted to do from the beginning. All those things you were hearing about with the rumored Saw 9 was never true, and this is going to be the direction going forward. Lo and behold, we get Spiral from the Book of Saw. It's scheduled to come out, gets postponed for its initial release date into the middle of the pandemic in May of all times, bombs at the box office. Very then quickly after, they have the script for Saw 10, or what would eventually become Saw 10, put into production, put out there, released in 2023 to $100 million worldwide. It is the most well-received Saw movie that has ever been released. And right after that, just a couple of months after that, they announced, hey, next September in 2024, you're going to get a Saw 11. There was rumors then everybody was back on board. There was rumors at that point that Kevin Greuter was back on board to direct, and Tobin Bell was going to come back to star. There was going to be a hyper focus on Mark Hoffman's character, Costas Mandalore, as well as bringing back Shawnee Smith, and hyper focusing on that. Like, it's a brutal, very intense film that was in line with the reality of at least the political movements, or like the cultural consciousness of today. Even probably retroactively even more so than what was anticipated when they were actively writing the damn movie. And for whatever reason, at least from what we're hearing now, for whatever reason, back in, I believe and correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, but it's January of 2024, maybe around that.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Yeah, like Mark Bergen, Oren Cool is like, they just get into a tussle where Oren wants to continue the franchise as is. Hey, we have this golden goose. So long as we can continue to use Tobin Bell, we pretty much have $100 million movies at our beck and call whenever we want. We can put one of these out a year and people will continue to watch them. They want them. This is something that they've been actively seeking since 2010, when we stopped making these on a yearly basis. And then for whatever reason, there's this thought. I mean, this is my reading into it, and tell me what your thoughts are. My thought is Mark Berg thinks that they have a brand that isn't necessarily building a whole lot, and he wants to essentially retire and sell everything off. And they can't do that when they have things in active development, or I don't know, maybe he doesn't believe in the product or something. What are your thoughts here? Because that seems to be the divide here. Oren wants to make the movie, Mark doesn't, and they're butting heads.
I guess before I should go into all this, this is all what we've been reading and rumors and speculation. So like we don't know this as a fact, unfortunately, but this is just what like multiple people have been saying over and over. That is producers, as far as understanding the motivations as to why between each of them. Like I say, I have my quarrels about both Mark Berg and Oren Kulis. I have great respect for both of them because you got to keep in mind they still managed to pop out 10 Saw films. And so I think it's safe to say that, whatever your opinions of both Mark Berg and Orkulis are, they both do love the Saw franchise. They, at the end of the day, they still do. And despite what's going on right now. And yet it's disappointing to hear. I have a theory of what's going on. Like, say, I guess I can talk about it. It's just a theory. Again, none of this is, I know it's true, but this is what if I had to theorize what's going on as to why this is happening. Um, Again, don't treat this as fact. It's just a theory. But I think that because of the success of Saw X, kind of goes back to what you said with Mark Berg and Oraculis, where Mark Berg figures, okay, well, we are on top right now. Maybe let's go ahead and let's see if we can get a chance to auction off this property. And there could be another thing too, because it's maybe not just be like a Saw thing with Oren Kulis and Mark Berg, because Mark Berg's working on a project right now with Darren Lynn Bousman and not associated with Oren Kulis. Oren Kulis is starting to get involved with his son, I believe, and other filmmaking projects as well. And like say, it's no different than like say you work with somebody. I think Mark and Oren have been working together for over 20 years. It's not just on Saw. They've done more films than Saw. I mean, they've done Two and a Half Men. They've done Anger Management. They've done other television series and films. And it could be a situation where the both of them just want apart. And one of the reasons they want apart as part of the decisions is Saw is one of their keys in the relationship, where they may have had like a falling out as far as business arrangements. Like say Mark may want to go one direction or may want to go in another direction. And people just do, fall apart. It's unfortunate, but it happens in business sometimes. It happens in real life. Some people can be work together for like 30 years, and all of a sudden, all it takes is like one heated argument or something like that, or disagreement, and then it jeopardizes like 20 or 30 years worth of friendship. And I can't speak to their friendship because, if the reports say that they had disagreements way back since January 2024, well, we saw both Oren and Mark at the Saw 20th anniversary premiere. They were exchanging pleasantries during that whole thing. So it's not like they're not speaking to each other, and not for that regards. So, but
Yeah.
so it's not like that. So I think at the end of the day, it's a business decision. It's based towards that. I don't think that either one of them is, hates the franchise. Like, no, like I want to take the franchise and sell it. No, I want to keep it going. I think like goes back to my theory, going back to what I said, the theory is I think that Berg saw an opportunity where, hey, I don't think anything's going to top Saw X no matter what we do. I think now's the time to, I've been doing this for 20 years. Maybe it's time to see what I can get and cash it out and go with somebody else in a different direction. And Oren's like, no, let's keep this going. Let's keep this going. I want to keep going. And that's kind of where the disagreement with the film rides, because if Berg still thinks he can make some money, because if they're going to split, if Oren and Mark are going to split, Berg may try to get some money out of his end, and Oren's still trying to keep rights to the franchise. And then it basically boils down to a situation where just nobody wins in this situation. Like the fans lose out, time passes by, we lose opportunity for Tobin Bell. Tobin's not getting any younger, and it's just the fans do suffer. But at the end of the day, I'm sure if Mark Berg and Oren Kulis, if they wanted to speak their thoughts to the fans, I'm sure they would. I'm just giving them both the benefit of the doubt here. But I think it just boils down to where it's just a business decision at the end of the day. And while we, the fans, hate this, we hate seeing and reading this, they're just doing this for like business purposes. And it sucks, but it's just what I theorize is going on.
Yeah. If Mark Berg is going to kind of tank this, if he thinks that, hey, this is just like the perfect jumping off point because Saw 10 did very well and we have pretty much our best market cap that we've ever had, where we have a bona fide, true successful franchise where 8 of the 10 that we have produced have made over $100 million worldwide. This is something that we can sell to other people. I think that that's misguided because it's possible that the only reason that that was ever the case was because of Tobin Bell. And the guy's like 82 years old. Like, you
Yeah,
and I have discussed this like multiple times on multiple different videos, but the thing is like the guy cannot be alive forever. I
I
feel
know.
like the best way of like cementing your legacy and pushing, I don't want to be cynical about this, but like you're talking about producers on a film franchise, right? Like doing the best for your pocketbook at this point would be like, hey, like we don't only want to make Saw 11, we want to make Saw 11, 12, and 13 back to back to back, right? Like we want to
Right.
put all of this stuff together and we want to push it out on the masses every single year so they're getting the things that they want with the style that they want. And I feel like they've proven that with what they've put together over the course of 2017 and 2021 with Jigsaw and Spiral, where they made it very, very clear that they cannot reboot this franchise with anyone other than Tobin Bell. He is the face of the franchise, the voice of the franchise, the protagonist, as it were, that everyone wants to see continue forward, even if his character died in continuity back in 2006 and they've just been bringing him back with either playing around with the timeline, flashbacks, or something else since that point. And maybe this is just like me being cynical about like Hollywood producers and people who've made it, but like I feel like that's really self-evident. And the
Hmm.
idea that like, hey, we're going to give up this property and you can just take the name and take the identity of it and do whatever you want with it, let it sit on the shelf for this long or whatever it is, like just buy the rights to make more sequels that have this particular name because that in itself is valuable, is to me really stupid, because I feel like the numbers themselves have proved that like there's only one viable continuation of this franchise. And it even felt like during the press promotion for Saw 10 that even the producers understood that. Like they even said, we're not doing another Saw sequel unless Tobin Bell is literally front and center. Like he is going to be the main character in every single movie that we do going forward. And it seems like this spat, whether it's personal, financial, just like whatever it is, if somebody wants to retire and somebody else doesn't, and they need, a majority consent of this two-party system, like
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me, and that's one of the things that like I'm having a hard time coming to terms with. It's not
Right.
that important. Again, like this is kind of an in memoriam thing where it's like it's not that important that this franchise continue, especially the continuity from Saw 10 or onward continue. It's just it seems like just the a failure in every single aspect. Financially, personally, like creatively, and everything else going forward.
Yeah. I guess I don't mean to harp on. I guess once article I'll touch on the first part of your statement earlier. One article I saw out there like a couple months back that really kind of got me a little upset was the fact that they were trying to use Tobin's age as an out for this film not getting made. Because when they first I think it was like on Movie Web or something like that when they said that because of Tobin's age that Saw 11 may not happen because Tobin's too old or may not be the best of help. I was like, what are you talking about? Tobin was going to be at conventions. He's still doing stuff. He's still working. He's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that part made me upset. Now, if they would have worded the article better and it said Tobin Bell because Sauce 4 was dumb to say his age was 52. I mean, Tobin Bell's 82. He doesn't pass as a 52-year-old. I get what they're saying there, but it didn't really work that article.
Exactly, right?
That was so dumb in Saw 4 to have him be 52 years old. The only reason why I think they say he was 52 because they didn't want that huge age gap between him and Betsy Russell, I think. So,
But even still, like, I thought it was. I've always thought that was just like Hollywood nonsense. Like they just want the main character or the person that everyone's showing up to watch. Like they don't want him to be in his 60s or something.
yeah. I think he was like 68 or 67 at the time a Saw 4 was going on or something like that. But they had
Exactly.
like a 52-year-old, and I was like, oh, come on, what are we doing here? Come on. But I digress. I think the franchise is Tobin. And I think they realized that too. And even like with the promotions and even the 20th anniversary, you heard Mark Berg say, thank God for Tobin Bell. We casted Tobin Bell because this series doesn't happen without him. And like I said, Mark and Oren, they both greenlit, Saw 11. And that's why I agree it wasn't, creative differences, because if it was creative differences, they would just fire Patrick and Marcus, start telling them to write another one, as if it was just creative differences.
Right.
No. But as far as that goes, I'm like, well, you have an opportunity, like say you had a chance to continue your story, but at the same time, if we look back on it, like, we are happy that what we got Saw X, because Saw X, like I said, to this day, every time I watch it, I think, oh man, it gets better and better every time I watch it, because I still see some of these little things and little touches that Tobin does and Shawnee does, and even Shinobi Makoti Lund does. And, will it bum me out that we may or may not ever get a resolution to her story? Sure. Heck, we're still waiting on resolution to Jigsaw from 2017. That's been going on 8 years.
Whatever happened to John's body, man? Like
I
what?
know.
What?
Whatever happened. I know.
It's out there,
Jigsaw
and
Blogs
you get
season
there.
2.
Well, yeah, like right,
Yeah.
because that was my thing. Was like that was always my thing. Was like Spiral took place before Jigsaw. It just has to. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it just
What?
leaves you somewhere. It's like, imagine your TV shows. They give you all these characters and it gets canceled. I'm like, what? No, I must know.
It's happened more often than
Oh
not.
yeah,
Quite
more
frankly.
people go through that phase, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Whether they can being canceled. I guess like officially, people on Reddit have done better job explaining this than I have. Like, Victory Stays one, or there's lots of people.
Right.
Space is another that they go on. They have more details and they're more in the now or know and stuff like that. But people had come up with different scenarios and ideas. Someone said that Lionsgate could just bring in other producers to come rent the property from them. But again, Twisted Pictures owns Saw, not Lionsgate, and that's what the issue is. And I just go back. I think one fun video we can go back to maybe in about 6 or 7 months from now is all the business decisions that the Saw franchise made over the last 10, 15 years. And we can look back and see, oh, that was a good one. Oh, that was a dumb one. But I think that'd just be fascinating and enjoyable just from a business standpoint. You could see when this decision was made, this started this effect, and that led to the downfall of this effect, and led to the demise of this. And going back to Mark and Oren, I was like, this sucks to say this, but man, I wish Greg Hoffman was still alive, because he was the third guy in between both of them when this series started. And maybe if he was around today, probably this wouldn't have happened. Or if they got like a third guy in the middle. I know like Dan Hefner was a producer. I know Pete Block, John Constantine were also involved as producers. But at the end of the day, the head one's executive is going to be Mark and Oren, and the buck starts with them. So no matter at Lionsgate, it's just a thing. But like say, I also read that Lionsgate's got to make the call because it's not going to look good to their investors. Why they had to postpone a movie and then cancel again. And I'm sure Lionsgate deep down wants the movie to be made, but as long as Mark and Oren had the final say, they can't. Their hands are tied, and that's not going to make Lionsgate look good. In which, if Twisted Pictures and Lionsgate are at an impasse right here, it doesn't look good for the future of Saw, because if Twisted Pictures and Mark and Oren hold out this movie, then why would Lionsgate, continue funding or promoting or even licensing out Saw anywhere else if they know that they're not going to get anything done out of them? So why'd they keep them? So no one really thinks about that decision on top of that, because this decision has long-term effects, like not just delay, because at the end of the day, Twisted Pictures is a privately owned company, and Lionsgate is, a publicly, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I right there in that regards?
Yeah, Lionsgate's publicly owned.
Yeah.
Or publicly. Yeah,
Yeah. First it's private, I think.
no, yeah,
So
like it's certainly not a private corporation.
yeah.
No,
Like I said, I don't
that's
get into the business side. That's just kind of what I read. But
well, that's
basically, the bottom line of
no.
it is like
That's the thing. Well, that's the thing here, right? Like,
mhm.
what was it like? 2023 was such an interesting year for Lionsgate. If you're going to talk about financials, because Lionsgate put out pretty much all of their heavy hitters outside of Twilight, which they acquired from Summit. So like everything that they put out or grew as an in-home franchise, they put out sequels to, which was Expendables, which was pretty much their only dud. But then they had Hunger Games, the new Hunger Games movie that came out a couple of years ago. That was a relative success. Saw 11 or 10 at the time. That was a relative success. And then John Wick 4. That was a huge success. So they had kind of a renaissance when it came to the box office in 2023, and then 2024 was abysmal. And I feel like I heard a lot of people at the time when Saw 10 was out in September overperforming expectations, not necessarily blowing everything out of the water, but I mean, coming back from, I believe Spiral was like a sub $50 million worldwide gross. Coming back from that to an over $100 million gross for a 10th movie in a horror franchise was something certainly worth discussing. And a lot of people who were covering the box office at the time were talking about, hey, there's no there's no reason why this franchise shouldn't have a sequel out in theaters every single year for the next couple of years, because there's a market cap for it. There's obviously enough interest here where you have Jigsaw making over $100 million. You have a lull because you kind of gave up what the general audience wanted, and then you brought it back for people to actively appreciate it. Like, people want more of this, give them more of this. They're going to continue to show up. It's going to make you money, even if it's Saw 6 money. Like, a movie that makes, especially for Lionsgate in 2024 and 2025, or hell, 2026, like a movie that makes 6 times its budget, huge success.
Right.
Like, so no, you're right about that. Like, there's no way that, like, in reality, Lionsgate, they're not the ones dropping the ball here, but like, yeah, they have a lot to answer for, because obviously they have sway here, and it's possible, if some rumors are to be believed, that like Mark wants to sell Twisted Pictures off to another studio to kind of give off the rights to Saul to another entity or something, like whatever. Maybe that's coming to an end. And I think with Lionsgate, as I said before, like they only have a certain amount of homegrown franchises that they have been actively nurturing over the course of the last 20 years. Saw is one of those, and probably their most important, if not, I mean, back in the day, it would probably be like Saw and the Medea franchise that they
Or the Hunger
actively
Games,
forgot.
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Hunger Games was something else. Hunger Games
Yeah.
was 2012 onward. That's like when they were already
That's true, yeah.
establishing themselves as the 7th biggest at the time, dominant powerhouse, and right before they swallowed up Summit Entertainment to become even bigger, and we're moving past MGM and everything else like that. Like, this is Saw. The Saw franchise came in and put it all together. The way I've always thought about it, and I've heard people write about this in various mediums. Scott Mendelson, who used to write for Forbes, then The Wrap, and now he does his own thing, which everyone has their own opinions about Scott Mendelson, whatever. I like him. He's he always used to say, and I appreciate this, is like, if New Line was the house that Freddy built, then Lionsgate is the house that Jigsaw built and Medea maintained. And I agree with that because that's exactly like the mentality that they had for the latter half of the knots. So, like, there's a lot to be said there about Lionsgate's potential frustration or perception of how people are going to be reacting to this news, especially their shareholders. But if the discussion here is Twisted Pictures looking to have a kind of a buyout situation and the butting heads are the producers not wanting to buy out versus wanting a buyout and whether or not they're going to sell to another studio or something, here's my question for you. Who buys Twisted Pictures and what do they do with the Saw franchise given the fact that it's literally their only asset? And also, if you're so inclined, how much does it even go for?
Oh my, I'm not really into business questions and stuff like that. Art studios and stuff like that. I don't know, because at first, let's start with the examples that people mentioned. I guess the top two ones that were rumored was A24 and Blumhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of indifferent. I see the pros and cons with both of those, to be honest. I mean, Blumhouse because, obviously it's more popular out of the two. But then again, look what they did to the Halloween franchise. That's different. And some things.
I have my own thoughts on that. I like
I know you do.
I like the Halloween franchise. I like what they did.
I know you do. I know you do. 3, I don't know, but but A24 is different because to me A24 always screamed like indie horror, like give it a big chance, like films that haven't really get a chance to show off, but give like local independent directors a chance to showcase their artwork and give them a platform. And Saw has always been kind of like a small budget, so I could see it fitting with that. But at the same time, I don't know if the styles of that really can mix with the franchise. Then again, I can mention other franchises, but then again, nowadays there are so many mergers going on with different movie corporations right now. It's even sad to report at this point. What are we on, WBD, Discovery, or whatever it is now? They're all together.
Oh yeah, I mean
So,
that and just everybody else.
Are Amazon. Like say, who just bought the? I could be wrong. Who just bought the Exorcist franchise? Who bought it?
Well, that was Universal. That was Universal. Universal bought the Exorcist franchise for $400 million, and they didn't even buy the franchise. They bought the rights to make 3 films in the franchise, and then they gave it to Jason Blum, and he was like, "This is the biggest thing that I've ever done," because it's not even his fault. Like that movie for its budget, the one that they made, and I haven't even seen it. I need to watch it, but the one that he made, regardless of whether it's good or bad, did relatively well at the box office. It just didn't do well enough to justify the $400 million they spent on it.
Right.
And that's a really good point, though, because like it or not, Twisted Pictures is just the Saw brand.
Mm-hmm.
100%. And as I was already talking about, like, if you're going to buy Twisted Pictures and you're going to do anything with the Saw brand, what is it without Tobin Bell?
Right, that's a good
Johnny
point.
Smith, Costas Mandylor, anybody else from that era? Like, what is it?
I guess the only thing you could do is, reboot, but keep those characters. But then again, you kind of hate to do that while everybody's still around. I mean, look at the backlash that the new Superman movie's getting right now because they're rebooting just fresh and all that.
Well,
so that's its own topic, but
that is certainly its own topic. But
I'm just using that as an example. I'm like, it's kind of hard to say. I can understand, if it dies, the franchise dies now, and maybe 10, 15 years from now they sell it. Fine, because because at least it's something new. But then you can go with the characters. But then I'd be going into the franchise, say, okay, what different are they gonna do this time? Are they gonna say if the Saw 1 concept to like say Saw 5 or something like that for like bathroom? Are they gonna go in chronological order? Are they gonna introduce Jigsaw early? Are they gonna do stuff like that and do little things like that with the series? So, but that's the beauty of it too, because going back, shameless plug for my series as well as my other castmates and other people that are in the chat. Hi Quentin, hey Andres, hey Christoph, hey Tom, hey everybody that's listening right now. But um, but yeah, that gives people with a series right here that can continue the franchise with its story, because the world of Saw, you can do so much with it, not just with its main characters, but just the concept and its story. I even go back and even jump back on the Saw 11 track. Did you read like what Milton said, the hinted what the plot was going to be?
Yeah, I mean,
I was like,
that's something I wanted to kind of cover here just a couple of minutes.
yeah, we'll go ahead and finish that question up. But that goes to the point before we go into that. But that's just the world of Saw, because you could take anything from the world of Saw. Like I say, you with the concept of Jigsaw and his philosophies and the traps and the motivations and the soap opera dynamics with it, there's just so much you can go on with. I mean, look at the two soft spin-offs we got with Jigsaw and Spiral. It made sense because I would give, despite its both those films' flaws and its successes, they still managed to keep it grounded in the Saw universe. And for a storyline perspective, it was well done, I thought, so in that regards. But and there's other concepts you can do. And there's other characters and plot and directions and storylines you can do. And that's what's the beauty of having the concept and this formula, you could say, pretty much, with the Saw franchise. There's a lot you can do. Even there's talks of them doing a Saw TV show where Billy the Puppet was kind of like the Crypt Keeper, telling his own stories from each victim. And just little things like that you can do. That's another topic we can do. Bottom line is, there's no matter who buys it or whoever decides they can do with it, there's tons of directions you can go with this franchise and its storylines and its characters. And if you keep it, grounded within that universe and follow its own sets of rules and dynamics, you're sure to have a successful formula for a film.
Yeah. I certainly thought about the Crypt Keeper thing a lot. I mean, shout out to, I actually have the book here, right here.
There you go.
Phantom Limbs.
Yeah, there you go.
Phantom Limbs by Jason Jenkins. I talked to this guy a lot. He's fantastic, and I absolutely love the Phantom Limbs series that he started on Bloody Disgusting. Check out that book because it's great, and I like to plug it whenever I can. But yeah, like the Crypt Keeper, Billy the Puppet Crypt Keeper show is certainly something I wanted to discuss here in just a couple of minutes. But no, like when it comes to people or any meaningful thing taking over the Saw franchise, have a good one, man. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just responding to chat.
Okay.
So, like, when it comes to anybody kind of taking over the Saw franchise, like you said, there's only a couple of people who've actually studios or whatever. I mean, according to the Supreme Court, companies are people, but whatever. They're the only couple of companies that have kind of come to the forefront of discussion. That is Blumhouse and A24. My biggest contention here, and I've discussed this on videos before, is that I would actually like Blumhouse to be in charge of the Saw franchise because I feel like they have enough connections with the people who actively created the Saw franchise, being Lee Winnell, who's directed several movies for them.
Oh yeah, like Wolfman was recently, yeah.
Wolfman, as terrible as Wolfman was, which I don't necessarily blame on Lee Winnell, but it is what it is. But
I did love the
Invisible
Saw
Man,
references in it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, yes, but the thing is like The Invisible Man, Upgrade, the other types of movies that he's done with them, they partnered with James Wan's production company. There's just a lot of potential there for getting the creative minds who created this franchise back in the creative chair, or back in the director's chair, in the writing room to cook up something with it. And I honestly feel like there's something there that if you were to announce, like, hey, like, just announce that not only are we going to do a trilogy of movies, but we have the original director and the original writer for the franchise back at the helm, and they have a completely new and original idea that's going to tie into the continuity, whether or not that's like abandoning everything past, 3 onward, which is, where at least mostly Lee Winnell, not necessarily James Wan, but I guess both of them kind of dropped off the franchise. So taking everything from Saw 3 onward, to me, there's a lot of selling potential there, and probably enough that's worth the investment from Universal or Blumhouse or anybody to swallow up Twisted Pictures and put something out there. The next thing is A24, which is there's a lot there, but way less of a perspective, because is it just is it just elevated horror, or is it something new, original, interesting? We know that A24 is going to be producing a Friday the 13th television series. They've been trying to do this for the last several years. Nothing at this point has come to fruition, and we don't have a whole lot of idea of what's going to happen other than just a couple of cast leaks and a showrunner, Brian Fuller, who was thrown out of that process way too early, in my opinion. And this is coming from a beloved fan of the Hannibal franchise. So I would love to see it if they can make it come to fruition, where somebody could put together a Saw television series, whether it's a reboot or not, whether they have to recast or not or something. We can talk about it then. There is a lot of potential there, especially if you're using the original 10 films as a placeholder. Like, hey, like there's a canon here. We're going to readapt it in our own way, and like we're going to change things, reinvent things, rework character dynamics and everything going forward, and we have like a 5-year plan. Count me up. I would absolutely love that. I would eat that up more so than I would a potential 11th film that was just canceled prematurely. With that said, with all of that being said, I'm going to throw a curveball here because I want to hear your perspective. Netflix.
Ooh.
Okay.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'll hear you out. Go ahead.
Okay. Hear me out. Netflix comes in for pennies on the dollar because Netflix is a $400 billion company. Pennies on the dollar buys up Twisted Pictures for the... I have absolutely no idea how much that they could demand for this franchise. I feel like if you're going to A24, if you're going to Blumhouse, you're going to be demanding like hundreds of millions of dollars because there's a market cap there. You could sit there and be like, look at these 8 movies that made $100 million at the box office. Like, people want to see this film franchise and they will continue to see it. And you have somebody out there who does not have their fingers to the pulse of the audience to understand exactly why people showed up to any of those individual movies that made over $100 million. They will balk at that, and you're going to have someone at Universal doing what they did with the Exorcist franchise and thinking like, hey, there's like $400 million worth of advertising here. So we're going to fill $400 million plus like whatever we're going to have to make the movies that are a reboot, not connected to anything else, and onward. Those things are, it's just like, free money at this point, and we're overspending, we're overproducing, we're overdoing everything else, and we're not making anything successful, to the point where the first movie comes out, it's a relative success, but bombs in terms of how much we spent on it, and who knows what's going to happen with the future. Okay, all that's for context. Netflix, I think, is a studio that can pay an absurd amount of money for not necessarily the market cap that any other studio would be looking to finance. And I also think that, and I say this as with the idea that this past year in 2024, or no, it's 2025. I say it with this idea that 2025, Netflix has stated that they're going to spend $18 billion worth of money on content, and they came out and said that they're absolutely nowhere near a market cap. So the idea that Netflix could come in, swallow up Twisted Pictures as a whole for the Saw franchise, and then just go ahead and produce the script for Saw 11, not a movie, not a television series, not nothing else, just here's Saw 11. It was already in production. We already had a script. It was ready to go. We had everyone like already tied to it. Just make it.
Mhm.
I want to know what the fandom would think about that. What are your thoughts?
Well, Netflix does have the money. I think they spend like $5 billion on WWE for like 10 years or something like that.
Oh
So
yeah,
they have the money or something like that. So, but I could see them doing stuff like that. I think it may take time to get all the paperwork and negotiations and stuff like that,
sure.
as far as licensing characters and stuff like that over to anything. But like say if you get it Saw, but also you get its characters. I'm like halfway. Like I say recently, I at least I got Scott Tips to appear on my YouTube series, but I found out that Lionsgate and Twisted Picture like owns the rights to that character, and so we had to use a fair use agreement. But I digress. But my point of that is just that whoever they sell to, they gotta be able to get all the merches and the names and the creative differences too, because otherwise you have a situation like where for instance, like, do you remember the Gotham TV show Fox had and all that?
Yes.
So like they couldn't get the rights like the Joker or nothing like that. They couldn't say like the Joker or nothing like that. It was just weird. So always you have issues like that as far as whenever you license stuff up creatively. But I digress on that as far as that point goes.
But if you buy, like, I'm not to interrupt you, but if you buy Twisted Pictures,
I guess you buy it out, you own it all.
you buy
Yeah,
the entire IP. Like, I wouldn't imagine that would be the hindrance. It would be like, how fast can the deal get done? Because like if it like this is all in the end like the
I guess kind of like like whenever Disney bought Fox and tried all those X-Men characters like that. Yeah.
Well, with that, that's also a really interesting example because one of the things that everybody was talking about is like the actors for the Fox universe of X-Men movies were contracted out until 2025, 2026.
Yeah, because that's what I was saying to, because that's kind of because not only do you get characters, but you gotta get the actors too. And the actors, like you said, may have a contract. And that's why it was kind of interesting, even though, like, say, like, Marvel, like, whatever's Disney bought Fox and stuff, they got those characters, and we're just now, like, all these years later, starting to see all the Fox characters show up. But you know how long that took just to get them there?
Right. Which, I mean, and yeah, like, you could imagine that these... Here's a really good example, too, when it comes to Netflix taking over something. And it's more recent now. Not necessarily.
I think you're going to say, but go ahead.
What? Just take a guess.
Go ahead. You go ahead. I'll see if I'm right.
Wait, what?
Go ahead. You say it.
Oh, come on.
I was gonna say Power Rangers.
Oh no! But that might be a good example. No, I was going to talk about the Fear Street franchise.
Yeah, that's another one too. Okay, I see what you're saying.
So, like, the Fear Street franchise was something that Netflix acquired because Fox had produced the original 3 films, and the intention was to release them at least in 1 year, if not like an entire month, right? Like, really sporadic, like not sporadically, but very intentionally, like boom, boom, boom. And Netflix was like, we're acquiring this. These are already produced. They're put together. They're edited. They're everything. Like, because of the Disney merger, they didn't want them. They sold them off to us and they put them together. Big enough hit that now they're doing a 4th film outside of that original 3 films that were already put together, it's not that I think that this is anything similar, but it's to me, it's the Fear Street franchise that Netflix has put together. It's like the only meaningful thing that they've ever done
That's
to
purpose, I guess.
yeah, like purpose or come together with the promise that they should have done, or how they could have moved forward with the idea of like the streaming era. That like I've always thought that the streaming era was going to bring us back like the heyday of the 80s slasher villain, where there was going to be like a new slasher movie trope or something, or character that Netflix or Prime or Hulu or whatever else was going to introduce, and we were just going to get sequel after sequel after sequel every single October for the foreseeable future, like for 5 or 6 or 7 years. The next Saw, really, where it was
Yeah.
just
So it kind of
like
follow the same formula, which I agree with. It was going to follow that same formula. Where
yeah,
every year,
every year. It's just easy to produce. It's like super simple. People wanted to watch it. Like it would give people incentive to continue to subscribe and everything. Just the entire model made sense to me. And the idea here is like we didn't see that come to fruition with anything in the streaming era, and now we're coming to the point where Netflix itself is winning the streaming wars, and yet they don't have anything in that caliber. So when I sit there and say, hey, what if Netflix were to buy Twisted Pictures and give anybody the ability to like come in and make a Saw film every single year? Hey, you already have Saw 11 kind of ready to go. Like you have everybody willing to do it. Kevin Groiter's just like sitting, waiting at the wings.
Yeah, and I feel so bad for him too, because I saw his post on Reddit. Like, he's like, "This has been like."
I want to cover that. I want to talk about it. Okay. Can we?
Go ahead. Yeah.
No. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think that Netflix coming in and making Saw 11 would be an interesting perspective here.
Yeah, I think it would be too, because like you said, it is a big enough platform where anybody could see it. And I know Netflix in the past has like bought rights to movies in the past just so they can get out. Went back during COVID and stuff like that. They experimented with that in that regards. And as you see, it's got a lot of movies right now. Like I say, it produces a lot of movies that are up for Oscars and Emmys and stuff like that. So it's a big enough platform for the Saw franchise where if they were to buy it, I think that'd be a huge gift for the franchise. I think you can easily see another 5 or 6 films out of it, and you can keep going. And I think, like I say, if there's a streaming service that be willing to buy it, I'm sure they would have no trouble like milking money with the franchise, because there's like a million things you can do with the Saw franchise. Like I said.
Oh, for sure. I feel like more than any other streaming platform, they would be the perfect home for it. And something, if they actively do it, I feel like there would be movement to make more content for it for the foreseeable future. Whether that's, I'm sure something you and I have discussed before, but like television shows or more movies or whatever it is, just to kind of build off of what has already been put together. And I'm just saying here, when it comes to like the whole Netflix argument, as opposed to the Blumhouse or the A24, I actively think that Blumhouse and A24, they would reboot the entirety of the franchise. I think Blumhouse would do a Halloween type of thing. Cut off it at Saw 3 or Saw 4, whatever they feel like it, right? Mm-hmm. And then A24 would probably just like retcon everything and just do an entire remake, whether it's a TV show or anything else. I don't think you're going to get that from a Netflix, at least at the beginning. I feel like Netflix would take what is already there, what's worth working with, and what everyone's excited about, grab everyone around it to make like the cheapest type of content possible, put it out there with the intention or the understanding that, hey, go back to the good old days. If it's Halloween, it must be Saw. Can you imagine that? Like that would be Netflix's like that would
Ultimately,
be
like
the
Halloween
trailer.
ends, like, hey, stay home and chill and watch Saw from home. It's
Yeah.
Halloween. Yeah. Why
Exactly.
not?
It's like that would be that would be their marketing campaign. Like literally, Netflix doesn't put a whole lot of they don't put a whole lot of thought into their marketing for movies or anything. Like they're just like, hey, if it's Halloween, it must be Saw. Put it out on Halloween like the weekend before for 2026. People go crazy, huge numbers like for that thing. And for Netflix, that's all that matters. Good enough. Put out Saw 12 next year, put out Saw 13 the next year, and like just keep it going. Like that would be that's for anybody who wants Saw 11. I honestly think whether it's Netflix, Hulu, Max, whoever it is, like that's what you want. That's the only way that we're going to get the movie that they've pitched. And can I just say that's a really good segue into the movie that they've pitched? Because I know that you're aware of this, and I am too. Like, can I get your thoughts on this? For anybody who's not aware, it sounds like it's a riff. You know, Marcus and Patrick
Yep.
back at writing. It seems like they're just riffing off of their most successful Saw franchise sequel, Saw 6. Someone's not giving John healthcare and he's going to take it in his own hands, and that's as much as Deadline was reporting today. So
Yeah. And I wrote a post on Reddit, and I had like two theories on what that kind of meant, what directions they could have gone, because I heard the rumors that it was going to be very Hoffman heavy. Um, they said it was very topical. They said it was like two ideas that came off my head was maybe Hoffman's a cop investigating something, and he stumbled across something where these people are totally guilty, and yet because of the system, they get away with it. And then Jigsaw's like, well, you all get with it, but you're not going to get away with it with me. That could be a story you could tell, or like say health insurance, or it could be a situation where maybe Congress or government was trying to pass a health bill so that could cover John Kramer or something that could protect scam artists that could tie into something else and stuff like that, and try to help get people their money back. But then I guess the people in charge could need to be like, well, no, sorry, we're lobbyists, or no, didn't pass through, no, we didn't get the votes. So Jigsaw's like, well, fine, like, I'll put you all on trial myself, and you'll play my games and stuff like that. So that was just like two theories I thought the plot could take place. But do you think that could be an idea for those two films right there, particularly?
I really like those ideas. I've often argued that the Saw franchise needs to be more politically minded.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that and I don't want to I don't want to be this type of person, but like this is one of the reasons I want Blumhouse to be in charge of it. As much as I feel like Blumhouse would not actively support this franchise in a real meaningful way as they otherwise could have, but I really think that if they could be in charge of the entire franchise, I feel like the Saw franchise would be allowed to be as kind of black and white and on the nose as something like the Purge franchise, because the Purge franchise is very unambiguous about where it stands with like its political leanings and where it wants like at least what it wants you to feel towards characters and everybody else around it, right? So I feel like that's one of the reasons I want Blumhouse to be involved, but I don't think that that's something that's a necessity. I honestly think that when it comes to the continuation of this franchise, whether or not it's a direct sequel from Saw 10, a reintroduction, a reboot of the status quo of the franchise, a continuation on television, whether it's a direct sequel, some kind of interconnected sequel, complete reboot, or whatever. The moral outlook of John is something that can lend itself to this cultural moment. And I don't care what it is. healthcare is obviously something that, again, like I said earlier, like this is something that people can gravitate towards.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially in this modern era. Like, if they had made this movie, if they had made this movie the way they wanted to, and it came out in September of 2024, and then in December of 2024, everything with Luigi Mangione happened, like, people would be looking back, right? Like
Yeah.
that.
That might have been the idea. Like, say,
It
like,
wasn't though. Because it wasn't. Maybe
it
it
was.
was, but like maybe it was.
There's lots of instances in history where things like that, like where
Sure.
people like go up there, challenge the system, and doing something like that, and you just going on that. But just that be a topical thing. There's lots of, like I said, I don't want to get into politics and stuff like that, but there's lots of things that happen that take place that inspire like movie and life events. Like you see things that happen in our media that inspires films to do its storylines and stuff like that. So,
Oh, for sure. But like, my thought process here is like, if
yeah,
there
well,
had been,
yeah, clever. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that was clever.
say what?
The Luigi, that was clever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like it certainly wasn't on their mind when they were writing the movie, but like if it had come out in 2024, it would have been relevant. If it had come out this September, it would have been very relevant.
Oh, yeah.
And and also, like, when it comes to the Saw franchise, and like I said, I've argued this for years. They've done the whole healthcare argument. You have an antagonist who is cancer ridden, who is trying to get trying to get treatment for a lot of different things. He is sympathetic in a certain way. They proved in Saw 10, I think, for the vast majority of the fans and just general audience, that John can be sympathetic. I don't think a lot of people really gravitated towards that, at least on a mainstream front, from Saw 2, which I think was I would argue, for you and me, for big fans of the franchise, those are the movies, Saw 2, Saw 3, Saw 4, like, those are the movies where you're like, I sympathize with this guy. Like, I understand kind of where he's coming from and how the world broke him and like why he's doing what he's doing. But I guess for the general audience, or maybe even just like the critical class, movie critics and whatnot, like, those people weren't satisfied or convinced about the merits of John Kramer as a character until Saw 10. And a lot of that, you could say, like, well, like, people grew up with the franchise. There's a huge difference between a movie coming out 20 years after the fact, right? Like, at that point, like, 20 years had passed. The critics of the previous generation had gotten too old, and now the mainstream critics, or the people who grew up with the Saw franchise, they understood who John Kramer was, and they're more inclined to give a decent movie, or at least a really good movie in the horror franchise, positive reviews, because this guy or this franchise is deserving of such, because the other critics, when those critics were young, like the older generation, were too harsh on it because they didn't understand it. There's something to say about that. But still, it must be said that the franchise itself certainly found a footing with giving John Kramer that protagonist style air to him. I mean, he always has been, because he's the main face of a horror franchise, but he's now looked at as sympathetic at the end of Saw 10, or at least during the events of that movie.
Yeah, I know it's very smart of Saw 10 to do that when the way they portray him, because the fans, like, love John Kramer for several years, and they've made the idea, like, feeling toward his perspective, his morality, and even little conversations such as that one little scene. It's just a nice little scene with him and Amanda, where Amanda just talked to him about addicts, and like, you kind of see how the arguments both of them have, where Amanda talks about how addiction can change, and John's just like, we have our free will. You people, drug addicts, you have free will to take drugs and don't do drugs. And Amanda's like, no, you don't understand until you become one. You truly don't understand what's going on. And I liked how they both, Tobin and Shawnee, handle it in a both mature manner, where both sides presented their argument, and no matter what your argument is, as far as like addiction or and stuff like that, both sides, you hear both sides, and you hear it presented to each of you, and it doesn't, one side doesn't truly insult the other side just by listening to it. So, and that's just credit to the characters and stuff like that and the writing. It's one of the reasons why I think Saw 10 is getting so much better. And like I said, I'm bummed because now the story is not continuing with these characters in this new perspective, this new day and age where these characters and the Saw movies have in fact evolved over the years. That's why I was so curious with this new plot line, because I would like to see Patrick and Marcus get another chance. I would love to see Kevin get another chance, because it goes to show Kevin's grown as a director over the years. I'm sure Patrick and Marcus, they've grown over the past 10, 15 years. They've learned from their mistakes. Still won't forgive him for Gibson, but I digress.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's too big of a mistake.
That's my one critique criticism. I would just love to sit down both of them and be like, okay, too, I love you and respect you guys, but I will give you both the floor to defend Matt Gibson as a competent final Saw protagonist, lead comp in your final Saw film.
I know the ability. It really felt like everything about Saw 11. Everything about Saw 11 feels like a redemption for Saw 7, because the like, understandably, and they said this over and over again, that like it was supposed to be two films that was squished into one and everything, but like take that as a creative challenge. Of course they had a couple of months, not necessarily
I will say this,
years.
like I said, if that's my main gripe with the two of them, like I said, and they've done a heck of a job, like I said, with both of them, because they both kept the franchise going for all those years after Saw 3. And I respect the heck out of both of them. It's just like I said, if that's my only main gripe with them, then they've done well as far as I'm concerned.
You and I discussed this. You and I have discussed this.
Yeah, we've discussed this in our top character breakdowns, didn't we? Yeah.
We've discussed this in detail in the retrospectives and everything, and I know for a fact I've said this before, that like it becomes, the original 3 films were very unconnected, which I think is what makes them incredibly special. And like so many horror icons have unconnected sequels, but when it comes to the Saw franchise, especially as you get to the end of the 3rd film, it feels like you have 3 very unconnected movies that feel like a whole. Like it could just have ended there and it would have gone on. Like it would have been well remembered, and we wouldn't be here talking about this now. Marcus and Patrick, those guys figured out a way to continue it in a way. Saw 4 is an interesting film. One of my favorites. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't agree with this, but it certainly is one of my favorites. Saw 5 is not super good, but when it comes to looking at the second trilogy as a whole, each individual film is part of that story, and looking at it as a whole is one of the most impactful things of the entire franchise. Like I remember very distinctly, as long as we're here talking about it, I remember very distinctly going to my local Cinemark at the time, watching. We did the same thing for Saw 5, but doing it for 6 was very special. An entire day's worth of marathon. They played all 6 films in a row leading up to the midnight premiere of Saw 6. And walking out of that premiere, or that entire marathon that day, was like, to this day, is like the most memorable theatrical experience that I've ever been a part of. It was amazing. Like, just seeing the progression and put together, like everything that they did, it was meaningful. And like what you're talking about, like I know the jokes about Gibson and everything, and as I'm saying, like it was supposed to be 2 films, and that's really the problem I always have with this, is I wish it was, because Marcus and Patrick made it very clear that if they're given the time, like, if they're given the time, they can put something together that's meaningful, and they had to mush it together.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with this, as well as Saw 11 too, was like, are they really being given the time? And I don't
Right.
know if that was the case or not. But right now, all we have is our speculation and what we know. We know that Kevin Greuter was enthusiastic about the script. The writers were enthusiastic about the script. Oren was enthusiastic about the script, and so was Tobin. That's what
Right.
makes all of this so much harder. That,
Right.
like, there's just so much that was being left on the table when you have all the creatives saying this is the legitimate direction of the franchise and this is what we want to see happen. I mean, there was rumors about it taking place in a prison. Marcus Dunstan had talked about how it was a very angry film and that it had something meaningful to say in the current political environment and all of that. And I just really wish that we had been able to see something about it. And I maybe here, like, this is days into this particular announcement. Maybe there's something here that will come up in the next couple of days to say, hey, this is like what the story was. Maybe the script will leak. Maybe something will happen where we get a sense of what we could have gotten. But at least right now, it feels like we're never going to get it.
Yeah, and that's what makes it hard because had it been like, say, if I think it'd been less painful if they didn't announce Saw 11, and then just Saw X was it, and then they pull the plug after Saw X. Then I think I feel like, this is a good way to end it and stuff like that. But and looking back on it, if Saw 11 doesn't happen, I can live with Saw X being it because it was a good one to go out on for Tobin and Shawnee and all them, and there was a nice little send off at the end for both of them. But like I said, what makes it hard is because they had plans, they had directions, and it just comes down to, at the end of, like I said at the beginning of this video, it comes down to a business decision. And sometimes in business, people do things that are popular, but it's best for them. And it may be selfish. And like I said, and going back to what I said, and I will say this, people, as much as we want to hate on Mark Berg right now, I know your first instincts is to turn, and everyone's just gonna hate Mark Berg, hate Oren Coolers for allowing this to happen. I encourage everybody, don't do that. And I understand the frustration, your hesitation as to why would I even say that? Because at the end of the day, we can be upset with their decisions now. We got to respect what they've done for the franchise to begin with. Like, they did give us, 10 films. They saw a project, Greg Hoffman did. They took a chance on James Wan and Lee Whannell. They gave us, 10 films over the span of 20 years. Something that you and I still talk about to this day, and that's a credit to them. They were just as much part of it as, all the directors, all the writers, all the actors. They were there too.
Mm-hmm.
Was every decision they made popular? No. Case in point, what we're talking about right now with Saw 11, me not being going. But at the end of the day, I encourage everybody, like, say, don't be hating on them. Don't hate on them, because you can be disappointed with them, absolutely sure, but don't be, name bashing them, drawing through the mud, calling them every name in the book and stuff like that. That's just my advice there. But it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be disappointed. But at the end of the day, it's a business at the end of the day. And those guys did what they thought is best for them and their situation and what they're going through. Again, we don't know the ins and outs of what's going on. This has all been speculation. That's just my advice to everybody that's just listening right now. Like, it's easy to feed and jump on board the hate train. It really is. And like I say, I'm disappointed with you all that this is not happening. I'm very heartbroken because, like I say, there's so many ideas. I would love to see what they would have done with Saw 11. And it still could happen. I mean, like you said, some things could happen down the stretch where some strings could get pulled, and it could happen maybe like in a year or two. But that's just my advice right now. Like I say, don't get on the hate train. Don't bash the actors. Don't bash the directors and the writers. It wasn't their fault. They put their heart and soul. The crew does. They will all love to make it tomorrow, but at the end of the day, the movie making stuff is just a business, and that's all I'll say on that matter as far as that goes. And it's disappointing, sure, but just again, don't jump on the hate train right off the bat. So that's just my.
I
It's like,
agree. No, I agree. I agree. It's very easy to jump on the hate train right now.
it is. It is. I'm with you. I feel you, man.
I wish I didn't feel this way. Like again, it's why I'm wearing the hat. It's why it's why I just feel like it's kind of a mourning situation. In fact, we knew this was coming. That's kind of the initial thought I had, is like, I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming this month, like mid-month. Like I knew like Bloody Disgusting didn't drop this news. They were just the first like reputable reporter to kind of start promoting it.
Right.
And people picked up on it because it's like, oh, we can pay attention to Bloody Disgusting because they have a reputation. They're not going to sit there and like spout off rumors and stuff. But like you and I knew.
Oh yeah.
Most people listening to this, especially if they've been listening this long, they knew. And so, like, it's still hard though.
It is.
And it's still hard. And I want to say that like I love speculating about what can happen in the future. I have a script for the Phantom Limbs. I keep bringing this up because I love this book. I love this book so much. But I still have a script for Phantom Limbs. And what my thought on a Saw television would be, a Saw television show would be, versus like what they thought a Saw television show would be, which I think is abysmal. But I have my own thoughts on that. It's a whole different video. But the thing is like, this is just what we have to live with. And like you said, the Saw 10 is a very good ending for the franchise. And I've already been at this for way too long, but it is a very good ending for the franchise. We should be happy that the first Saw film ended with John in a dark room being just like, kind of ending with him being covered in darkness. Saw 10 ends with him and Amanda being covered in light. Kind of a perfect iteration. It's like, walk away, feel good about this. Yeah. Don't think about it any other way. Like, this is what it is. Watch it in any other way that you want. We didn't even get to it. I feel like I need to discuss this in a separate video. Though, like, it's not even the ending of Saw 11 that like pains me the most. It's the things that we already knew were going to be forgotten about. It's everything that was going to be forgotten about entirety. It was everything that was going to be forgotten about in its entirety that we knew about going forward. Was like, they were never going to pick up Jigsaw again. They were never going to pick up Spiral again. They talked about it like, oh yeah, it's possible. We love this idea. We want to work with these people again. Didn't make enough money, guys. Didn't make enough money. Didn't make enough waves. Didn't do anything. Like, Saw 10 was the way to go. There was a lot of momentum there, like creatively, financially, like everyone. It would have been financially beneficial for everyone, and it didn't go forward. That's all the things that you need to know. Jacob put it very clearly at the beginning of this video, or like well into like a couple of minutes ago. Sometimes it's not about the money. Sometimes it's about personal life. Sometimes it's about other things. Different iterations, different perspectives from everyone involved. That's just what we're dealing with right now. And that's the future of this franchise until either everything gets worked out and we get Saw 11 in 2026, maybe, who knows? Or hell, they sell it off to somebody else who does a reboot or a television show or something else. or someone like a Netflix or somebody who's like, hey, Saw 11's ready to go. We're gonna put all 10 film. We own all 10 films. We're gonna put all of them on our platform to kind of promote it, and we're gonna make Saw 11 as like the big promotional output of this Halloween season, and that's going to be our big thing. Who knows? Like literally, like we're in kind of the Wild West of I shudder to say content creation for mega franchises. And I would put Saw as a mega franchise. It's $1 billion franchise, so just bear with that. But yeah, that's where we're at. So, Jacob, any other closing words for this? And we'll just end it off here.
Okay. Bottom line, guys, like, yeah, it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. Just don't go to hate. That's kind of what I said. Don't go to hate. But, this is disappointing, and it is a bummer that we're not going to see it, because I was looking forward to seeing, so many people get different chances. I would love to see Patrick and Marcus get another chance. I would love to see Kevin continue directing. I'd like to see Tobin one more time. Shawnee and Costas get another chance to come back. Maybe different characters to shine and work with them. Maybe new actors and actresses to come in and shine. Maybe we could see some prize characters return that could have returned for these films. But at the end of the day, I'll quote the Joker. It's like, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. So, but as far as that goes, even though this may be the end of this franchise as far as, the movie making and this continuity, and still just be thankful we got 20 years of a horror franchise that's been strong and affected so many people's lives, like yours and mine included. So just be happy about that, because most franchises are lucky to get one or two sequels. Let alone Saw got 10 movies. How many horror franchises? How many horror franchises they got over $1 billion in the box office? So there's not very many that can do that. And Saw's a franchise, like you said, it could be proud and hang its head and be look back on it, maybe like 20 years from now. When I finish season 2 by then of my series, we can look back on the franchise and just see, be happy with what we had and what Saw was and what it meant to all of us. And like I said, I know this could be the end of that. I'm not certainly done with Saw. Like I say, I'm still working very hard on my Saw YouTube series. Shameless plug here. But yeah, check us out, Jigsaw Blogs. Check out all the other Saw fan film franchise and fan film universe. We got a lot of content coming. And just go support horror, no matter what it is, if it's Saw or not. And be proud of what we have. The game may be over, but the legacy just lives on.
I agree with that 100%, man. Yeah, and I will when I put this on a separate video, when I edit it together and everything, like I will put the Jigsaw Blogs in the description section below, as well as everything that I discussed here. So make sure to go check all that stuff out. But yeah, like there's a lot to be discussed here. I'm sure that this is not going to be the only time that we discuss anything with Saw going forward. There's a lot to break down here, and as I discussed earlier, like, or at least alluded to, I cannot imagine that we have heard the last of Saw 11. Regardless of whether or not it happens, like, there's going to be leaks and everything about what the story was. We'll cover those when they happen. Like, I'm talking about like years down the line and everything. And we're also going to hear more about like what happened here, like the falling out and why this didn't all come together, especially when we start hearing about whether or not all this is going to be resolved, because there's no way that this doesn't get resolved. Again, guys, it's a huge franchise. Regardless of what I've said before, it's a huge franchise. Even if you just take the name alone, it's worth enough for someone who's willing to spend money on it. I don't think we're in the $400 million range of like the late 2010s, the 2010s, where studios and everyone was like competing with Netflix to buy everything up. for outrageous sums of money. I think we're all, like, pretty much every distributor is away from that perspective. But that being said, a lot can happen in the next couple of months, in the next couple of years. And we're just going to have to wait and see whether or not any of this really comes together. The only sad part here is, as I said at the beginning, like, it seems like a financial malpractice situation to, like, not continue to make these and bulk make them when you have Tobin Bell alive, ready, and willing to work and play this character until his death. And he's in good health. Like, he's in good health for his age, which is fantastic. But, you know, the man is still 81, 82 years old. So, like, there's always that thing lingering over. So take that what you will. We're going to leave it there. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Like I always say, it's been real.